All right, we're diving straight into a really pivotal moment, recorded by the historian Josephus. It's one of those moments where a single decision made by the Roman general Mark Antony completely changes the game for a whole kingdom. This one decision is going to give rise to a dynasty and pretty much set the stage for decades of conflict to come.
So here's how we're going to walk through it. First, we'll look at the power struggle that kicked this whole thing off. Then, the desperate appeal to Rome. After that, we'll see Antony's big verdict, the chaotic reaction it caused, and finally, what this new Roman-backed power really meant for Judea.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The Roman Republic itself is in chaos, right? And way out in its client state of Judea, you've got this major power vacuum. The question of who is really in charge is about to boil over.
And here's the heart of the conflict. On one side, you have Hyrcanus II. He's the legitimate high priest. He's got the title. But on the other side, you've got these two brothers, Herod and Phasaelus. And as Josephus tells it, they were the ones actually running the show, managing everything. So Hyrcanus had the name, but the brothers, they had the real power. And you just know an arrangement like that can't last.
You know, this wasn't even the first time someone tried to fix this. An earlier group had already gone to Mark Antony, complaining that the brothers were basically ruling by force. But Antony, he was not impressed. He just sent them packing. But that failure didn't make the problem go away. If anything, it just made the opposition even more determined to be heard.
So this leads us right to the next chapter in this saga. The leading men among the Jews figured, okay, the last approach didn't work. We need to go bigger. They put together a formal, really high-powered delegation to go and present their case to Antony one last time.
And look, this wasn't just some random group. We're talking about 100 of the most powerful and influential men. Josephus even calls them the most potent both in dignity and eloquence. Sending a group of this size and, this stature, it was a clear signal. This was a crisis, and they needed Rome to pay attention.
Their argument was incredibly direct. I mean, they didn't pull any punches. They accused the brothers of being tyrants who had grabbed power illegally, leaving the real ruler, Hyrcanus, with nothing but an empty title. They were putting the question right to Antony. Who does Rome recognize as the actual authority here?
So, the case has been made. The Jewish delegation made their accusations. A Roman orator defended the brothers. And now, everything comes down to Antony's decision.
Antony just cuts straight to the heart of it all. He turns to Hyrcanus himself, the guy who was supposedly having his power stolen, and he asks him a very simple, very direct question. In your opinion, who is the best choice to run this place?
This is so revealing because it shows us what was going through Antony's mind. He listened to both sides, sure, but then he asks the supposed victim, Hyrcanus, who, and this is a shocker, actually sides with Herod and his brother. But the real kicker? Antony remembers his own past. He recalls how the brother's father, Antipater, had shown him hospitality years before. Turns out, old friendships carried a lot of weight.
So, Antony makes his call. And he doesn't just dismiss the accusers. He gives Herod and Phasaelus a promotion. He makes them tetrarchs. This was a brand new, official Roman title. It basically meant that the government of Judea was now formally, officially in their hands. The brothers weren't just the guys with the power anymore. They were now Rome's chosen rulers.
As you can probably guess, this decision did not go over well back in Jerusalem. The news sparked absolute outrage, and that outrage was about to slam headfirst into the cold, hard reality of Roman military force. The opposition didn't back down. In fact, they escalated things dramatically. A new delegation, this time 1,000 people, marched to the city of Tyre to confront Antony face to face. They were absolutely determined to make him change his mind. And this just shows you how fast everything fell apart. The verdict comes down in Antioch. Jerusalem explodes in protest. A massive crowd of 1,000 people shows up in Tyre. Herod and Hyrcanus actually go out and try to calm them down, but it just makes the crowd angrier. And at that point, Antony has had enough. He orders his soldiers to attack, and they do. Many were killed, many more were wounded. That bloody confrontation right there on the seashore, that was the final word. The debate was over. Antony's decision, now backed up by extreme violence, had completely changed the rules of the game in Judea.
So, let's just boil this all down. What's the bottom line? Herod wasn't just some local strongman anymore. His authority was now Roman authority. And challenging him now meant challenging Rome's legions. The connection between this new Herodian dynasty and the Roman Empire was literally sealed in blood.
Any idea of local independence under Hyrcanus was completely gone.
What happened that day laid the foundation for King Herod's long, and let's face it, very controversial reign, a reign that was born from a Roman's judgment and enforced by Roman steel. And it leaves us with this really profound question, one that echoes through history. When a ruler's authority is forced on a people by an outside power, can it ever really be seen as legitimate? It's a question that makes you think about what it really means to rule and to be ruled.